Hello students, welcome to DO Nalgonda online classes. Today I would like to teach you the sea reading. The title of the sea reading is Sindbad the Sailor. Dear children, open your textbooks and look into your textbooks. So I bought a substantial stock of goods to trade and sailed on a ship with a number of my merchant friends. We placed ourselves in the care of Allah and set off. Soon we reached an island. So here Sindbad, he shares his experience with us. Here I in the paragraph, it refers to Sindbad. So Sindbad, he bought a substantial stock of goods to trade. So what did Sindbad do? Sindbad bought substantial stock of goods. So he bought ample stock of goods. He bought enough stock of goods to trade. And he sailed on a ship. He sailed on a ship with a number of his merchant friends. So they placed themselves in the care of Allah and set off. So before they began their journey, they had prayed to Allah. They reposed their faith in Allah. Soon they reached an island. So they reached an island. We decided to go ashore. My friends went to gather fruits and flowers, but I took my food packet to a place in the shade. I had a good meal and lay down to sleep under the trees. I don't know how long I slept, but when I awoke and looked out to see, the ship had gone. I was all alone, not knowing what to do. I climbed up to the top of a tall tree and looked over the island on all sides. In the distance, I could see something white and decided to find out what it was. So Sindbad and his friends, they reached an island. They decided to go ashore. They decided to go to the land, and his friends, they went to collect fruits and flowers, but Sindbad took his food packet to a place in the shade. He had a good meal and lay down to sleep under the trees. So what did Sindbad do? He did not go with his friends to collect fruits and flowers, but he took his food packet and he had a good meal and he lay down to sleep under the trees. So he fell asleep. He was asleep and he did not know how long he slept. But when he awoke and looked out to see, the ship and his friends had gone. He was all alone. Sindbad did not know what to do. He climbed up a tall tree and looked over the island on all sides. In the distance, he could see something white and decided to find out what it was. Soon I came to what seemed like a huge white ball when I touched it, it felt very smooth. It was so high that I could not see the top of it, and it was more than 50 paces round. There was no door on any side, and it was too smooth to climb. So soon, Sindbad came to this huge white ball. He came to the huge white ball. When he touched it, when Sindbad touched the huge white ball, it felt very smooth. The white ball was very smooth. The surface was very smooth. It was so high, and the huge white ball was so high that Sindbad could not see the top of it. And Sindbad measured the size of the huge white ball. It was more than 50 paces round. So here, dear children, pace means length of a single step. Single step. He measured the size of the huge white ball. So there was no door on any side, and it was too smooth. He tried to climb up, but it was too smooth to climb. Suddenly the sky became dark, as if a huge cloud was hovering it. Looking up, I saw that the darkness was caused by the shadow of a huge bird that was flying towards me. I had often heard sailors talk of a great and wonderful bird called a roc. This must be a roc, I thought, and this huge ball must be its egg. Suddenly, the sky above me became dark. Suddenly, it became dark, as if a huge cloud was covering it. So, looking up, Sindbad saw that the darkness was caused by the shadow of a huge bird that was flying towards him. So it became dark, and the darkness was caused by a huge bird which was flying towards Sindbad. He had often heard sailors talk of a great and wonderful bird called a roc. So he had heard about such huge birds, and the name of the huge bird was a roc. So this must be a roc, he thought, and this huge ball must be its egg. Must be its egg. So, dear children, turn your pages. So, the bird came nearer and sat on its egg. I soon crept close to the egg. Near me was one of the bird's legs, which was as big as a tree. I decided to tie myself to the leg of this bird and with my turban, so that when it flew away from the island, it would carry me with it. So, children, the bird came nearer and sat on its egg. The roc, the bird, it came nearer. And what did the bird do? The bird sat on its egg. So Sindbad soon crept close to the egg. So near him was one of the bird's leg. So Sindbad crept close to the egg, and near him was one of the bird's leg, which was as big as a tree. He decided to tie himself to the leg of this bird with my turban, so that when it flew away from the island, it would carry me with it. So what did Sindbad do? Sindbad, he decided to tie himself to the leg of this bird with his turban. So he decided to tie himself to the leg of this bird with his turban, so that when it flew away from the island, it would carry him with it. So he decided to tie himself to the leg of the bird, so that the bird would carry him with it. So Sindbad was all alone on the island. He did not know what to do. Then when the bird flew down, he decided to tie himself to the leg, so that he would be carried away by the bird. At daybreak, the bird flew up so high that I was carried out of sight of the island. Then it came down again so fast that I lost my senses. When I found myself on the ground, I quickly untied the turban. The bird caught up a snake and flew away. So in the morning at daybreak, the bird flew up so high that he was carried out of sight of the island. So the bird flew up in the sky, and Sindbad was carried out of sight of the island. Then the bird came down again. It came down again so fast that Sindbad lost his senses. When he found himself on the ground, what did Sindbad do? He quickly untied the turban. The bird caught up a snake and flew away. What did the bird do? The bird caught up a snake and flew away. Dear children, so this time I found myself surrounded on all sides by immense mountains that seemed to me to reach above the clouds. The sides of the valley looked so steep that there was no possibility of climbing them. When I began to look around the valley, I found that there were large diamonds lying on the ground. So, dear children, the eagle brought Sindbad to a new place. So this time Sindbad found himself surrounded on all sides by high mountains, so which seemed to reach above the clouds. Now here Sindbad was in a new place, and the place was surrounded on all sides by high mountains which seemed to reach above the clouds. The sides of the valley looked so steep that there was no possibility of climbing them. So Sindbad began to look around the valley. Sindbad found that there were large diamonds lying on the ground. Lying on the ground. I was excited to find such riches lying around me. Then I saw something else that made me very frightened. All around the valley there were huge serpents, some of them big enough to even eat an elephant. These came out of their holes at nightfall. During the day, I suppose they hid themselves from the rocks. So Sindbad was excited. He was surprised to see such riches lying around him. So there were large diamonds lying on the ground of the valley. So he was excited. He was excited to see large diamonds lying around him. Then Sindbad saw something else that made him scared. He was very frightened. All around the valley there were huge serpents, some of them big enough to even eat an elephant. So what did he see? So he saw huge, very big snakes, some of them big enough to eat an elephant. So these snakes, they came out of their holes at nightfall, and during the day they hid themselves from the rocks. So dear children, these big serpents or snakes, they came out of their holes at nightfall. At night, these snakes came out of their holes, and during the day, they hid themselves from the rocks. Snakes, they hid in the holes. They hid in the holes during daytime, and children, I found a small cave where I decided to spend the night. At the entrance, I put a large stone to protect myself from the serpents, but the noise of their hissing outside made sleep impossible. I was glad that they went to their holes as daylight came on, and I was able to come out again, but I was still frightened. In fact, I found myself walking upon diamonds without a thought of their value. At last, being very tired, I decided to eat a little of my food and then to have a short sleep in the sun. So, here, children, Sindbad found a small cave. He decided to spend the night at the entrance. At the entrance of the cave, Sindbad put a large stone to protect himself from the snakes, but the noise of their hissing outside made sleep impossible. So, Sindbad, he found a small cave. He decided to spend that night in the small cave. He had put a large stone at the entrance to protect himself from the serpents, but the noise made by the serpents, the hissing sound made by the serpents, made sleep impossible. He was awake all the night. So he was glad. Sindbad was glad that the serpents went to their holes as daylight came on. So during the day, the serpents, they went to their holes, and Sindbad was able to come out again. But Sindbad was still frightened. In fact, he found himself walking upon diamonds without a thought of their value. There were diamonds lying on the ground of the valley. Sindbad was walking upon the diamonds without a thought of their value. At last, so he was tired. Sindbad was very tired. He decided to eat a little of his food, and he decided to have a short sleep in the sun. So Sindbad was very tired. He decided to eat a little food and then to have a short sleep in the sun. The noise of the serpents, the hissing sound made by the serpents, disturbed him throughout the night. He didn't get sleep. So I was suddenly awakened by something which fell near me. I sat up and found that it was a huge piece of raw meat. At the same time, more pieces fell down from the rocks above the valley. I had heard stories in the past about this valley of diamonds, but had not believed them. Now I saw with my own eyes what the local merchants did to obtain the jewels. They used huge eagles to carry up the diamonds for them. So, dear children, so Sindbad, he took his food, he ate his food, and he slept in the sun. But he was suddenly awakened by something which fell near me. Something fell near Sindbad and that made him awake. He sat up and found that it was a huge piece of raw meat. So, a huge piece of raw meat fell near him and that made him awoke, that made him awake, and it was a huge piece of raw meat. At the same time, more pieces fell down. More pieces fell down from the rocks above the valley. Sindbad had heard stories in the past about this valley of diamonds. Had heard about Sindbad had heard stories in the past about this valley of diamonds, but had not believed them. Sindbad had heard about the valley of diamonds, but he did not believe then. Now he sees with his own eyes what the local merchants did to obtain the jewels. So the local merchants, they used huge eagles to carry up the diamonds for them. The local merchants, so they used huge eagles to carry up the diamonds from the valley.